Welcome to The Gate. We're glad you could join us today. Here's a look at some of our upcoming events. Calling all the ladies. You are invited to a women's fiesta tomorrow, Monday, May 5th. Join us at 6:30 p.m. at the home of Meg Crew. This is a great opportunity to bring a friend and meet new people. We will also hear from a couple ladies on how they've tasted the goodness of God in their lives. A Mexican meal is being provided by our own Catherine O'Connor. The cost is $8 to cover the meal. Please sign up in the Church Center app if interested. Save the date for our annual church picnic, which is set for Sunday, May 25th at noon out in the field. More details to follow. Heads up, Gate fam. Our next Freedom Immersion will take place on Friday, May 23rd, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., and Saturday, May 24th, 9 to 4:45 p.m. The cost is $30 per adult, which includes lunch and the manual. To sign up, please log in to the Church Center app.
Missions part of things. Weren't those good videos? Just the stories, the way that God is using the Apples and Christy Edge. The Apples, that video, or the song that they had in the background of their video, that's from their album. Of course, that was a cover. They have some original songs as well that they're doing in English and in French. And they're seeing some just really some inroads through that, through music and through that album itself. And then that final shot in Christy Edge's video where she's standing on the edge, looking over this city, like that was a $1 million shot right there, Christy. I mean, way to go with that one. I don't know how you worked that out, but that was really good. So there are these pledge cards, and you may not have had enough time to really look at that before the offering basket made it by you. But there's also a pledge form that you can submit online. And so if you go to thegate.cc, click on missions, just scroll down a little ways and you'll see the pledge form there. And so two main ways to give. One is by pledging. And many of us, if you're like me, then you can give more over the course of the year by doing monthly pledges than you can do all at one time. But for others, the one-time giving works out really well. So if you can do the one-time giving, then great. You can do that online. Of course, you can do that in service as well. And if you're going to do pledging, you can pledge in service, or if it has already made it past you and you didn't have a chance, we still have 2 more weeks of this, but whether in service or online, you can pledge there as well. The thing that we're going for, and because prices keep on going up, this keeps on remaining true, that if every adult here at the Gate were to give the equivalent of 1 Starbucks drink per week, to do that, then we would have enough money to cover all of our missionaries, to fund all of our missionaries, and to have more besides that. So that's basically like $20 per adult person per month would be enough. Isn't that amazing? I mean, just $20 per person. Now, some people, you can do well more than that, and others, it might be that that's beyond your reach right now. But whether it feels like a lot to you or a little to you, even if it feels like a little to you, it's still so worth giving. There is something about being all of us together supporting these missionaries. There's a strength in that. So even if you feel like, what I can give, it doesn't even feel hardly enough, hardly worth giving, it is. It really is. There is great value in being together in the support of missionaries. So if you're new here, you're not needing to choose one of these missionaries. It's not a matter of choosing Christy or choosing the Apples, or last week we had Renee and Marianne Laco and we had Joey Stoltzfus. You're not having to choose anyone. This is all going into a missions fund, and we're supporting these missionaries and mission efforts from this. Well, happy Star Wars Day, right? May the 4th. Some of you won't get it, and you'll have to have someone explain that to you later, and that's okay. But happy Star Wars Day. Today is my oldest son, Simeon, our oldest son, Simeon's 20th birthday. And happy birthday, Simeon. You're a wonderful son. And so happy birthday to you. And then I know that there's also a number of families who are here because of college graduations. My parents are here from New Mexico. I know that the Bruinsma family, they're here from Arizona / Tacoma area to see their granddaughter graduate. Francesca graduate yesterday. There's going to be a graduation honoring here in a couple weeks of the college and the high school and college graduates. Some more on that to come here soon. We are in this this new series now called The Pressure's Off. And what a great title and what a great image for this. I love this graphic here. The pressure is off. Today, my part in The Pressure is Off, I would title this message that we're going to be in this morning from a song title, part of a song that we're going to sing. I think we're going to sing at the end of service. A simple kind of free. The pressure is off. It's a simple kind of free with the subtext, the grand inheritance of the silent and the still. We've just come through really a wonderful time of year, a season that I think the season that we just came through, that it has a claim to being the most wonderful time of the year. I think it maybe rivals Christmas in some ways. The dormancy coming to life, things that we may have even forgotten were in the yard, just suddenly emerging, suddenly there. Buttercups bursting forth with their yellow offerings, and tulip poplars go all white and pink, and the dogwood, I think the queen of all spring trees. Do you agree? Anyone there on that? Dogwoods, just with offering their layers of leaves, their crucifixion-tipped petals. It's amazing this time of year. The grass is so green. I'm speaking to people who are living in Tennessee. If you're from New Mexico, like my parents are, this is a time of year of just dust and more dust. But for those of us here, we know why people are moving here. I mean, they even had to shut down interstates here recently because the visibility was so limited where they are. But here, it is a really wonderful time of year. But even the beauty, even the wonder of this time of year, for some people, it's a mixed blessing. The change of this season creates with it pollen, right? Allergies for some people that are miserable, or for others. I mean, some people have a real strong aversion to storms, and the change in the weather, we know it creates these, as we've seen here, especially in May, tornadic activity. The change and the beauty can be a mixed blessing. The month of May continues kind of the theme of change. Graduations are this joyous time. May, even if you're not graduating, for those who are students, and many of us still remember what that was like, having this endless summer just opening up in front of you. If you lived in Danville, you get 104 days. If you're there with Phineas and Ferb, some of you won't understand that either. The rest of us 60 days, but it's still this open summer just right in front of us. But for some, that time, especially that graduation time from high school or from college, it can introduce one really big question that can be uncomfortable, the what's next question. And if you're a high school graduate and you're not going into college and you keep on getting over and over this question, like, oh, so what are you going to do? Where are you going to go to college? And if you don't have that plan completely nailed down, it's an awkward thing. I'm not sure. Same thing with college graduating. Like, wonderful thing, but what's next? What about the job? What about the place to live in? How's life going to look? At any time, most of us are living in some kind of change, some kind of transition. It can be a job change, a relational change. It can be a birth, which is joyous, but then there's such tiredness. It can be a death where there's grief, but then also joy in the mix of that. It's just change can create these pressures that we can feel, be burdened by. And so this series, The Pressure is Off, is a way of recognizing the reality that there is a pressure that we might feel, that we might labor under. Change can create this kind of pressure. But who wouldn't want to live a pressure-free life? I mean, we all sign up for that. And yet here is the challenge. We have to be intentional, even disciplined, using that word in the right way. We have to be even disciplined for the pressure, in order for the pressure to be off. We're going to look at this morning a couple of the main ways that we can grow into a life where the pressure is off. Many of you know that we're in a time of transition right now as well. My family, Rachel and I, having been a pastor here at the Gate for 18 years and then stepping down from that position and not knowing what we're stepping into. By the way, if you know of a job, someplace that's hiring, please let me know. I'm open to all kinds of things. It's more about the environment and the teaming than it is about the product or the service. So if you know something, I'd love to hear it. During this time for us of this transition and the transition into the unknown, the Holy Spirit has really used a well-known passage from Scripture to be a teacher to me, a teacher to us. And this well-known passage of Scripture comes out of Exodus 14. Most of you will know this story of the people of Israel after having been in Egypt for 430 years. The majority of that time having been held there in a time of in a form of servanthood, a form of slavery. That now Moses has showed up, and there's been these 10 plagues that have happened, and during these plagues there's been this bargaining that's been going on, and Pharaoh bargaining with Moses. Moses saying, we want to all of us go, let us go free into the wilderness, 3 days journey, so that we may worship God there. And the first couple plagues, Pharaoh just outright ignores that, says no to that, and then he starts to bargain, and it starts to become, well, some of you can go, your men can go, or your men and your women can go, but you need to leave the young and the old here. Or all of you can go, but then you need to leave your flocks here. And each time Moses is saying, no, we need to all go with our flocks, 3 days journey into the wilderness. And of course, Pharaoh knows that if they go, they're not coming back. They're not going just to worship. They're going to worship, and then they're going to be kind of propelled from that worship into freedom. And they're going to, Egypt's going to lose their labor supply. And so there's this bargaining that's happening. And then finally, that final plague, and Pharaoh says, be gone. And all the people say, be gone. And here's our bangles and our jewelry and our gold pots and bowls and silver and clothes. Take it and go. Take flocks and go. As they go, they know they're leaving to go and to go to this promised land, this land that had been promised to their descendant Abraham 500 years ago. And they've heard about this vaguely. It's just a vague idea of some place out there, God has this land for us. But as soon as they go, they know that there's one road that goes to Canaan. There's a trade route that goes from Egypt to Canaan, and yet God takes them a completely different direction. So they're going to the wilderness to worship. They're going into the unknown. The one road they know about is the one road they don't take. And as they go, there's this pillar of cloud by day, this pillar of fire by night that leads them, tells them when to stop, tells them when to go. And they're finally brought up to the edge of the Red Sea. They get to the edge of the Red Sea, which maybe to them would have in the moment seemed great until they turn around and realize that Pharaoh, with hundreds and hundreds of chariots, is bearing down upon them. And so into this situation where they have this sea in front, this army bearing down on them from behind, they are thrown into a panic. And that is where these verses pick up. Exodus 14, starting in 10. When Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they feared greatly. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us in bringing us out of Egypt? Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians. For it would have been better for us to die. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. And Moses said to the people, fear not, stand firm, see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You have only to be silent. The Lord said to Moses, why do you cry out to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. There's two postures here, these two postures that I want to draw our attention to that are keys to living a pressure-free life. The pressure is off kind of life. These two postures are in verses 14 and 15. Verse 14, the Lord will fight for you, Moses tells them, and you have only to be silent. You have only to be silent. The NIV says you have only to be still. So stillness and silence, I'm going to use these two words interchangeably. And the second posture is then Moses, now God is telling Moses to be quiet because Moses has started crying out to God in prayer, and God says, you don't need to cry out to me. Tell the people of Israel to go forward, meaning into the Red Sea. Then he gives them some instructions. Lift your hand, and he lifts his hand. The cloud that was in front of them then goes behind them. It says the angel of the Lord goes to their rear, between them and the Egyptians. Only be silent. Posture number one, only be silent. Only be still. Posture number one. Posture number two, move on. NIV, go forward in the ESV. These two postures, I hope that we'll see here in the course of this morning, they are keys to being a mature God follower, a mature Christ follower. Again, they are keys to living the pressure is off kind of life. So this first one, the Lord will fight to you. The Lord will fight for you, says Moses. You have only to be silent. You have only to be still. This is an interesting thing here. It's almost like talking to kids, and many parents are familiar with this. It's you hear all this stuff, and it's like, just be quiet. Just stop the talking. Just stop the fear-mongering. In this case, stop the fear-mongering. Stop the fear-fomenting. Just stop rehearsing the thing that is making you fearful. Just stop that. Just be silent. Like that's all that's needed right now. Just be silent. Just be still. And God will fight for you. That's all that's needed. Be silent, be still. And yet that silence and stillness for many of us, even in adulthood, that can be a real challenge for us. We see it with kids being silent and being still. I mean, come on, good luck with that. Like that takes so much training, but even with adults, sometimes it's like just stop rehearsing that same problem out loud over and over and over. Stop talking about that same thing over and over and over and over. Just be silent, be still, watch God. He will then fight for you. There is, though, a problem for us with stillness and silence. It can really create a problem for us. There's a poem that speaks to this in some ways, that tries to kind of convey the challenge that comes with stillness and silence. Because the moment that we're still, the moment that we're silent, there can be this onrush into our minds that can cause us more agitation. Let's put up the first stanza here. Sitting still, and we're not always great with grammar in the U.S. Sitting still, here the stillness is like the ongoing state of something. Like he's still on a walk, he's still eating, they're still in the bathroom. Like this ongoing state of being in a certain posture or position. Sitting still. Busyness wanes. That part's good. Surface now, anxious thoughts. Specter of lack, too much, too little. Mind turns upon turn. Sitting still. Until we learn through cultivation and practice, until we learn how the right kind of stillness can, until we learn the stillness can be a problem for us. It is the onrush at times of discomforting thoughts. It's the inability at times to free ourselves from the racing hamster wheel of thoughts in our minds. Or it can be in that stillness, it can be the feeling, the agitated feeling of being unproductive. Stillness can make us aware of these problems. And so, many of us, we just stay busy. We stay busy to keep stillness at bay and these problems at bay. Or we eschew quietness by having something constantly going on, music or podcasts or, God forbid, the news going constantly. We do this so that we might abrogate the problems of quietness, of stillness, silence. There is, though, with some practice, there's another kind of stillness. There's a possibility. It's not just problems, it's possibilities as well. So the second stanza, sitting still. This stillness is that internal peace, sitting in peace, sitting still, Sabbath still, a shift of sight, a rain, a wren, swaying tree, lilting heavens, the things that we become aware of when there's an internal peace of being. Lilting heavens, daughter's voice, providence's gift, peace in earth, sitting still. God will fight for you. You have only to be still. You have only to be silent. The need is for the inner being to correspond to the external posture. The sitting, the stillness to be an internal quietude, an internal rest. This is what is meant here. This silence, this stillness, is part of what Scripture means by Sabbath and by shalom. And it's meant to be a significant part of our inheritance as children of God. There's quite a few verses on this, just 3 verses, and these just from the book of Isaiah about this stillness, this quietness, this silence. The first one is phrased in the negative, and this is from Isaiah 57. But the wicked are like the tossing sea, for it cannot be quiet, and its waters toss up mire and dirt. There is no peace, says my God, for the wicked. Here framed in the negative, it's just saying for those who are wicked, for those who are not part of the family of God, there's no claim, there's not even a possibility of quietness and the peace that comes from that. Now, for some of us who are Christians, you might be living in such a way where you're just like, I don't have quietness either. I don't have peace. Maybe there's just a domination of anxiety or thoughts that are depressed in nature. This verse is not saying that you're wicked. This verse is just saying that for those who are wicked, they have no claim to it. They have no claim to that quietness and to that peace. But for those who are children of God, it might be a challenge to get there, but there is this possibility. It is an inheritance that God means for you and for me to have. The second, another passage here out of Isaiah 30, this one. For thus said the Lord God, the Holy One of Israel, in returning and rest you shall be saved. In quietness and trust shall be your strength. Notice these pairings, these couplings, and then the promise that's with that. In returning and rest, you shall be saved. This idea that in turning to God without attempt to make ourselves right or to make ourselves better, without attempt to try to find resource in ourselves, none of that. Just simply in returning, turning, orienting ourselves to God. That in doing this, in returning and rest, this is salvation. In quietness and trust shall be your strength. The message of the world all around us, constantly around us, is that if you want strength, then you need wealth, or you need to be physically imposing or beautiful, or you need to have a dominant personality. These are the ways to strength. No, in quietness and in trust shall be your strength. Isaiah 7:4, be careful, be quiet, do not fear, and do not let your heart faint. So why be careful? Why the need for care with us? Well, without silence or stillness, the presence of God can go missed in our lives. That's why be quiet. That's why be careful. Because the presence of God can go missed. In the face of fear or confusion or anger or whatever it might be, In the face of that, even a supernatural cloud by day and pillar of fire by night, in the face of fear, that can just become a mere anomaly. What can a cloud do against an army? That surely was what the people of Israel were thinking. Like, yeah, we've had this great supernatural thing that's every day it's there, every night it's there, but what can that do in the face of chariots and swords and spears? I mean, they've been in mist before. They had been in fog before. You just walk through it. What help is that? There's a sea in front of us and an army behind us, and what good is a cloud moving from in front of us to behind us going to do? They didn't realize that cloud was a manifestation of the presence of God. They didn't know in that moment that cloud moving behind them meant that there would be darkness cast upon the army of Pharaoh, and that they would be bathed in light so that they could see God part a sea in front of them. They didn't know it. Without stillness, silence, the presence of God can go missed. And so the writer in Isaiah says, be careful, be quiet, do not fear, do not let your heart faint. So without silence or stillness, the presence of God goes missed. Silence and stillness, they are the precondition for God's presence, for knowing God's presence. This is a quote adapted from David Brenner. Stillness and silence, they are the precondition for knowing God's presence. This idea of stillness and silence, it can be for some of us, it can seem so foreign in certain ways that we can have difficulty even understanding what is really meant by this. So a few descriptors of what silence, stillness, what it is and what it isn't. First, silence, stillness, it doesn't mean that there is no emotion or pain or difficulty. It's not asceticism, it's not indifference, it's not a code word for detachment from life. It may still involve labor and challenge. A person can live with inner stillness and be a high achiever. This is not about being introvert or extrovert. It's not about being a low-performing or high-performing person. It's about the internal quietude and rest with which a person can live. It will likely mean one feeling their own weakness. On occasion, silence or stillness may literally mean not saying anything. On occasion, it might mean this. For some people, if one is prone to just rehearsing, rephrasing, reframing a certain problem and just going over and over and over it, then silence, just not saying it, has some value on its own. I have a friend here who he just fairly recently, he discovered with his teenage children the value of silence. That when one of them says something that provokes some agitation in him, that he's just learning to just not even say anything. And there's two benefits with this that he was telling me about. One is that he doesn't say something or respond in a way that he then has to apologize for later. But the second thing that he's found is that when he is being quiet, when he is being silent, that it's a little bit confusing to his children. And he's found that in the face of his own silence, that they then start to retract the thing that they said. They start to unwind the thing that they were wanting to do. Like it corrects itself just by him being silent. So on occasion, silence or stillness may literally mean not saying anything. But it certainly always means working to cultivate an inner peace. It always means that. Working to cultivate. I'm thinking of here, Hebrews 4, where it says, there remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from their works, just as God did his. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest so that no one will perish by following their example of disobedience. Let us make every effort to enter that rest so that no one will perish. Silent stillness. It might mean telling a spouse, a child, a friend, an employee what is needed for relational health. Those conversations are still important. Those are important conversations. It's important to give good information. But to do this in a way that entrusts them to God, rather than attempting to drive them or shame them to action. Silence and stillness. It is perpetual action to refuse fear and anxiety, a place of influence in one's life. This is what we're talking about with silence and stillness. A perpetual action to refuse fear and anxiety, a place of influence in one's life. We have a Freedom Immersion coming up here May 23rd and 24th. If you haven't been part of that, would love to have you sign up and be part, because it's really about two things. One is about knowing our original design, how God has individually, uniquely made us. And so there's time given to exploring that. And it's really a wonderful thing just to have other people kind of hear from God on your behalf and to share with you what they're hearing from God about you, about how he has made you. It's so encouraging, and it can be surprising and fun. Like, how could you have known that about me? Well, God told them, but it's still so surprising. So it's one thing, there's that part of just being, of hearing and understanding more of how God has made you, how he has designed you. And then second, being free from the things that get in the way of living more fully in that design. And so this last phrase here, the perpetual action to refuse fear and anxiety, a place of influence in what's life, that's really freedom right there. It's this idea of, there's gonna be things that are gonna war against us, and we're gonna have some struggles with some various kinds of thoughts and temptations. But freedom is about not letting them have a place of influence in our lives. So all of that was the first posture, that first posture of being silent, being still. The second posture is found in verse 15. Again, it says, why do you cry? Why do you cry to me? God says to Moses, tell the people of Israel to go forward. So the ESV is to go forward. The NIV says to move on. So the Israelites were told, here's the situation again. The Israelites were told to move on. They were told to move on without seeing a way. They were going to a place they didn't know, and they were going into a wilderness that was wholly inhospitable, wholly inadequate to support them, their flocks, their families. And they were going there with the express purpose of worship, perhaps of learning to worship. Let's think about this for a moment. These phrases, move on, go forward, it's very easy to substitute. Where God says, tell the people to move on, it's very easy to substitute in our own minds for them, or even for ourselves, to substitute move on and to replace it with move to. Move on and move to are very different things. Go forward, God telling them to go forward is very different than if God had said to them, go to. Moving to something or going to something means that there is a knowledge of where one is going. If 3 years ago you were living in Orange County and God said to you, move to Franklin, Tennessee, you knew where you were going to. He said, move to Franklin, Tennessee. You know where you're going. Here in this passage, that's not what God is saying. He doesn't say move to something. He just says, move on, move forward. So moving to means that there is a knowledge of where one is going, but moving on doesn't require any knowledge. It only requires obedience. And of course, that's the rub, right? That it requires obedience without knowledge, without knowing. To move on is to the seemingly, at times anyway, the seemingly impassable. To move on is to the seemingly impassable, and certainly it's to the unknown. When God says, just move on, just go forward, it's always unknown. It's always like, oh, but how? What do I even do? Well, just go. Moving on emphasizes an away from dynamic. You're moving away from Egypt without really knowing at all where you're going. Whereas moving to requires knowledge of what's coming up, the place, the plan, the how. I've never heard anyone fault the Israelites for not knowing where they were supposed to be moving to or how they were supposed to be moving to. They were given a direction away from Egypt, and it didn't matter how impractical the path in front of them was. There was an unknown promised land somewhere out there, but immediately there was a wilderness in which they were to enter and to worship. We all have wilderness times. The wilderness is the unknown. It's the uncomfortable, it's lack, it's loss, it's weakness. The wilderness, it will either be a place, a time of desolation and eventually destruction, or it will be a place, a time of worship and supernatural provision. It will always and only be one of these two things. To engage silence and stillness, to engage moving on, going forward when it's to the unknown, the unseen, the how isn't spelled out, is all about trusting obedience. To engage silence and stillness and moving on, going forward, is to know spiritual maturity. Spiritual maturity is being content with worshiping in the wilderness. There is something very primal about this. When you don't know what you're supposed, you know you're moving on, you know you're supposed to go forward, but you don't know how, you don't have the answer, you don't know the way exactly, you know you're just supposed to make movement, you're just supposed to go. There is a kind of spiritually primal worship that's part of this. It feels vulnerable, it feels even dangerous. I was thinking of this, my mother-in-law in this way. You know, many of you know Suzanne and the journey that she has been on, still on, with her husband, Mike, who has Lewy body dementia. And with this form of dementia, every day when she goes to see him at the assisted living memory center that he's at, she doesn't know what it's going to be like. Because with this form of dementia, one day she can go and there's no responsiveness. There's very little, maybe some recognition, but there's not any kind of correspondence. There's very little relating. Many of you have been through similar journeys. You know what this is like. But this kind of dementia, then the next day she can go in and he can be engaged. He can be responsive. He can reach out and take her hand. He can tell her that day how wonderful she is. If she came back later that day, it might be completely different again. She, early on in this journey that has now been almost 2 years, early on in the journey, she and we were just praying, God, early on it was prayer for healing, and later on it was, God, just take him. This world is not his home. This place is not his rest. Just take him to be with you. And there's still a measure of praying with that. But fairly early on, God spoke to her and just said, I'm still doing things. Don't ask me to stop doing things just because it's uncomfortable for you. And so for her, there is this vulnerability that every day, not knowing what her husband of 55 years, what this interaction is going to look like. There's a feeling of, even, she hasn't said this, but I would put this word on it. There's a feeling of it feels dangerous at times. Like spiritually, internally, kind of mentally, emotionally, it can feel dangerous, not knowing what it's going to be like. And yet this is the way of life. It is the way of life to engage the unknown with trust. This is spiritual maturity. And there is no way around this. Spiritual maturity is being willing to be led to the unknown. Spiritual maturity is active, persistent trust. You are in good company if you don't know where you're going. Now, don't fabricate this. If God gives you direction and he spells it out and he tells you the place and the how and all of that, rejoice, right? Because we want that. We need that in our lives. But for those times where it is unknown, just rejoice that you are in good company. If you're in a season where it's unknown, rejoice. You are in good company. And you are in the company of the great if you develop a life of trusting God with the unknown. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. He went out not knowing where he was going. As it was with the father of our faith, so will it be with any of us who follow him in the faith. You're in the company of the great if you develop a life of trusting God with the unknown. There is a poem that captures some of this idea. It's called Is the Binnacle Empty? We'll come back to that word binnacle here in just a second because I didn't know what that word was. Is the binnacle empty? And it's this poem that it has in it the illusion of crossing through a sea and seeing it part, seeing a way made through the unknown. A binnacle, as it turns out, a binnacle is it could have been like brass or copper or wooden little structure on a ship near where the helm was. And the binnacle was the housing for the compass and the sextant and the tools of navigation that were used. So the binnacle being empty, is the binnacle empty? It means, are there no tools of navigation? Is there no way to know? Is there no compass? Is there no sextant? Is there no way to know? And that's the question that's being asked. Is the binnacle empty? There's 3 stanzas here. In the subdued light of uncertain seeing, no true landmark the navigator espies. In the night blanketed with mixed feeling, the North Star serves no guide for sightless eyes. We want for a compass to plot our course. Need outstrips the ken of terrestrial man, who at his best is middling, muddled, a helmsman who is addled, unless receiving the path. Is the binnacle empty? Is there no source? Woe, alas, if this be true, we are lost and rocked, a ship on shoreless sea. But lo, behold, if it be the way that is specially sought, a compass have we, marking sea-cleaving course. A word or a waiting, these our treasured lot. The binnacle's not empty, there is heavenly source. A word or a waiting, these our treasured lot. So how to cultivate silence and stillness in an age, in a world, in a country where it's really anything but these things. First, just 3 things here. And worship team, if you could come on up. Whoever is coming up, if you would come on up. The first of these, if you have fear or anger or shame or temerity or whatever it might be, if you've got this, if you've got fear, first just acknowledge it. Don't ignore it. And this is a key. The not ignoring, the acknowledging it is a key to developing a pressure is off kind of life. Because it's the attempt to ignore, it's the attempt to numb fear and its various kinds of fruit. It's an attempt to ignore and to numb this. It is what keeps us from knowing the grand inheritance of the silent and the still. The peace that God means us to have, the shalom that he means for us to know in our life, to live under a Sabbath rest. So first, acknowledge, don't ignore it. Second is there is a thing called the daily office. You've heard Ryan Hall perhaps talk about this. Amy Phillips has talked about this. There's various resources out there. The daily office is all about just developing as a response to God and his love, developing this rhythm of responding to him. And usually with the daily office, there are multiple throughout the day. Morning, there's different ones. There's morning, noon, and night. There's morning and night. There's some that have 5 different times throughout the day. This one that I have with me here is called Day by Day, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. It's a 40-day devotional with one in the morning and one in the evening. But each short devotional has a time of quietness before it and then after it. And this can be a challenge. There's a challenge to actually be quiet. There's a challenge to actually be still, like real stillness. It's not something that happens automatically for most of us. It's something that does take time, usually to cultivate. But over time, for me, I've been through this. I didn't take the first 40-day time that I went through that. I've been through this 3 or 4 times. And it's still something that I have to be intentional about. But find, whether it's a day by day or some kind of similar daily office, cultivating those daily rhythms, having throughout the day these moments of having a stillness, having silence, of developing little points throughout the week of Sabbath rest, so that Sabbath rest that we're supposed to enter into can become more complete, take over more of our lives. Third thing, and this one is a verse. When the disciples were there with Jesus, they didn't quite realize it, but they were getting the idea that they only had a couple hours left with him, and that something was going to completely change on that night that he was betrayed. Even as the betrayal was in process, the disciples say to him, we don't know where you're going. How can we follow you? We don't know where you're going. How can we follow you? And then Jesus, in those very well-known words, he says to them, I am the way and the truth and the life. That understanding that in the wilderness that you might be in, that you might find yourself in the unknown, the uncomfortable, the place of lack, the place of difficulty, the place of relational challenge, whatever, that right there, the way through that, Jesus, it's a person who is the answer. It is a relationship who is the answer. I am, Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life. And if in times of an unknown and times of the known as well, if we could throughout the day develop this lifestyle of just turning our minds so many times over to Jesus and saying to him, Jesus, in this place of challenge right now, I've just been asked to do this project. I don't even know what to do. But before I even try to figure it out, Jesus, I just know you are the way. You are the truth. You are the life. Graduation has just happened, not knowing what is the next step. Jesus, I don't know what the next step is, and it feels really uncomfortable. But again, I have relationship with you, and that is everything. You, Jesus, you are the way. You are the truth. So I just focus on you, trusting that you will then open up the way for me to go, that you will point me in the direction that I'm supposed to walk in. When it's a relational challenge that all of your efforts can't make things right in that relationship, and everything in you is just searching for answers, searching to try to figure out how it can work. The real need, the greatest need, the most fundamental need is so many times, again, it's so simple, but it's just getting ourselves there that is the challenge. The prayer itself is simple. Again, Jesus, you're the way. I don't know the way through this relationship challenge. I don't know. But you're the way, and you're the truth, and you're the life. I turn my eyes to you. I entrust myself to you. I entrust this relationship to you. Doing that over and over and over, it then becomes like, whoa, the pressure is off. It's not on me to make this right. It's not on me to find the way through this. It's not on me to have the resource within myself to provide, to know how to do it. It's the lifestyle of turning to Jesus. A compass have we, marking sea-cleaving course. a word, or a waiting. These are treasured lot. The binnacle's not empty. There is heavenly source. Could we stand? I told you that the title of this was A Simple Kind of Free. I'd just love for us to close out here by singing this song together. And then at the end of this song, I'll just bless us and we will go out. I trust with a furthered provision from God to respond to him, to move in a stillness and silence and going forward, if that's the season, going forward, even if we don't know how or where to, that there will be a new kind of provision to do just that. So let's close in singing this together.